everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight. What a fantastic night it's been, hasn't it? My name's Christie. Thank you. And I know I look and sound way too country to be a scientist. I grew up in central Queensland on cattle stations a long time ago, hence the quality of that photo. But that's been fantastic for my job because I work for the Queensland Alliance for Agriculture and Food Innovation at the University of Queensland. Try saying that 5 times fast. So you all know that scientists love an acronym, and this is ours, and we call ourselves QWOFI. But when I say that with my accent, I know it sounds a lot more like this. But rest assured, I know I'm way too country to be making a latte in the lab. I'm actually a livestock quantitative geneticist. And when I tell people that I work with genetics in cows, they think that my days look like this. Whoops, this. Or sometimes this. But it looks a lot more like this and much more like this. I actually have to give Google a real big shout out for my PhD. So I grew up in the country and I still live in farms, but I love to come to the city sometimes, mostly to get a town coffee, and that is coffee with a C this time. And also to see what it's like when there's more than 5 people in the same space. There's actually more people in the room here tonight than my entire hometown, which is frankly quite terrifying. But when I come to the city, I notice the designer dogs, and they fascinate me because I make designer cows that look a little bit like this. So I work with farmers to help them pick the best bulls to use for breeding on their farm. You can think of me as a dating coach for bulls. Sorry, I know there's kids. Swipe right for good genetics, okay? So I actually map the genes of bulls and I help farmers find the bulls that have the best genes for growth and fertility and to be resistant to certain pests and diseases. Because if I can do this, I can help them improve the efficiency of their farm. It's actually also really useful on my farm because then I can use this skill to see whether I should let this studly young bull that I've just bought breed with the cows on my farm or whether I should give him the snip and let him sing soprano in the choir. So let me show you some of the work that we're doing to help Aussie farmers and to help you enjoy your next barbecue. So the question is, how do you pick the best bull? It's actually really hard because there's hundreds of different bull breeds and thousands of bulls to choose from. It's kind of like picking the best contestant in a bovine version of The Bachelor. So the way that a bull looks in the paddock doesn't tell us that much about the genetics that he carries. And we are interested in the genes that he carries because this is what he passes on to his calves. And that's the product that the farmers are going to sell. So how do we select the bulls with the best genes to breed our designer cows? It's not exactly like we can go and ask our bull for their genetic resume. And besides, with genetics, guys, it's what's on the inside that counts, especially if it's prime rib. So the answer to the question is, we use DNA. So, who here has heard of Ancestry.com? Nice. So, this is a company that you can send the DNA sample off to, and then they'll send you information back about your genetic ancestry, and also about certain personality traits, such as, do you like coriander? I don't get this one, because I think you'd know it before you actually got the DNA test back, but the point is, we can do the same thing with cows. We can pull a tail hair sample and send that away to the lab, and then the lab gets that information back to me, and then I can find out what bulls, or what the genetic ancestry of the bulls, and also I can find out the sorts of genes that these bulls carry and estimate their genetic merit. I then put this information in a catalogue and give that to farmers. You can think of this as a sophisticated bull Tinder. So, again, there's kids in the room, I'm sorry. Instead of fishing and gym photos, we actually provide farmers with much more useful information, such as, does a bull have a nice temperament? And even more importantly, about his scrotal circumference. Which is actually not that much different from what we're looking for in our men, is it, ladies? And yes, we do actually measure the scrotal circumference of our bulls. Some of my friends keep telling me this is why I'm still single, but Don't worry, gents, I do not bring my tape measure to my dates. Okay? So I'd like to actually make this bull tinder catalogue a little bit more visual. Sorry, I'd like you to consider the two bulls on the slide here. You'd have to admit they look pretty similar, right? It's mostly because it's the same photo. But the point is, when you look at enough bulls over time, they start to look the same. And the point that I'm trying to make is you can't tell that much about his genes just by looking at him. So if I add some numbers from the bull tinder catalogue, you can see that sirloin has all positive values for growth, fertility and temperament. Fantastic, that's exactly what we're looking for. On the other hand, steer clear has all negative values for these traits. So for farmers looking for a high growth, highly fertile and calm bull, the choice between these two is really clear. And in fact, steer clear should probably end up in my freezer. But could you imagine, I don't know how many people are on dating apps, but could you imagine how cool this information would be in a dating app? It's actually highly unethical for me to put numbers on the slide, but I know which one I'd choose, okay? But if we go back to our bulls, you can actually see these numbers make it so much easier for farmers to find the bulls with the best genes, rather than just relying on his physical looks alone. But don't get me wrong, we still need our physically hot bulls. We need bulls that can service and mate with at least 5 cows every single day during a breeding season. And keeping that many women happy sure is going to be a hard task, isn't it, gents? Don't answer that if your significant other's in the room. I don't want to be responsible. Okay, so you can see how these numbers actually help farmers pick the bulls with the best genetics. And the best thing is, bulls can be shortlisted from the catalogue at night, once the kids have gone to bed, when you're sipping a glass of red wine, much like how I select my matches on the apps. But no, seriously, I love my job, guys. Australian cattle breeders are world leaders in breeding and genetics. And we have a really good industry that has a reputation of being clean and green and very progressive. I'm just going to show you some of the traits that we're working on to show you how we deserve this reputation. So one of the traits that I'm looking at is breeding for resistance to certain pests and diseases, such as ticks. This will reduce the amount of harsh chemicals we use in the industry and also improve animal welfare. I'm also looking at heat tolerance, because we know that our climate is getting a bit more variable. We've had some really hot summers recently, and we need to make sure that our cows are actually resistant and resilient to a changing climatic conditions. And really cool is we're now working on a heap of projects in methane. And fun fact, 90 to 95% of the methane comes from the front of the cow, not the back. So we're trying to breed cows that produce less methane to help reduce emissions, to help Australian farmers become carbon neutral, and to help Australia reach its global emission targets. And if you look at the overall high-level picture here, it's actually not that much different from what we're trying to do in dating. I'm trying to find a man who's resilient and produces a lot less methane. So you can see, guys, that breeding these designer cows is not just about looks, it's breeding the cows of the future. Cows that are resilient, sustainable and productive. If only we had such useful information on the apps. So I hope you remember that science can be both serious, and yes, that's me, seriously fun, also me. And the next time you're enjoying a juicy steak at a barbecue, please just think about the hard work, the DNA mapping, and just a little bit of matchmaking that went into it. So, thank you all. May your cows be ever productive and your barbecues always delicious. Good night.